Good evening. I'm Ellen Baker, board member of the North County Democratic Club, and I have with me tonight Clarence Chief Williams, candidate for Port Commission, Group 3.
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ms. Baker. How are you this evening?
I'm well, thank you. I'd like to give you a couple minutes to tell us about yourself, and then we'll get into the questions.
Well, thank you so very much for this opportunity and the opportunity to be heard. I found it difficult to campaign during the middle of a pandemic, but thank God, as human beings, we are creative in how we do things. So we welcome this opportunity to be with your board and members on Zoom. My name is Clarence Williams, and I'm a candidate, of course, for Group 3 of the Palm Beach County Port Commission. I have been in public service for over 40 years. I started my career in Cincinnati and retired there after 25 years as a executive manager. I've been in Florida since 2002, finished my law enforcement career in the city of Riviera Beach the past 16 years. In between there, I also found the opportunity to be able to practice a little law. And I practiced law for about 8 years. So you're looking at a person who has 4 pensions, I say. One from Cincinnati, one from my law practice, and one from the city of Riviera Beach. And guess what? I'm on Social Security. So we are running because we're passionate about service and continued service. So that's Clarence in a nutshell. I'm a family person. My wife is Ethel Isaacs Williams. I like to say that she is the person that makes me. And when I ran for office once before, I used to introduce myself as the man who accompanied Ethel Isaacs Williams to Palm Beach County because everybody knows her. And so it reminds me sort of John F. Kennedy when he went to Paris. And if you remember, Jacqueline Kennedy accompanied him to Paris, and he was giving a speech, a breakfast morning speech, and then she entered the room and the room erupted. And President Kennedy said, "I am the man that accompanied Jacqueline Kennedy to Paris." So we're excited to be here and have the opportunity to talk about it.
Great, thank you. So you touched a little bit about why you were running. Do you want to expand on that at all?
Well, certainly. We're running because we're passionate about public service and we're passionate about economic growth and development. Port authorities were created to be economic engines for the districts that they serve. I want to make certain that our port flexes and uses its economic muscle to be an economic engine, not only for the footprint that is represented in Riviera Beach and the northern part of West Palm Beach, but throughout the Port District that is bounded on the south by Southern Boulevard from the ocean to the lake, and on the north by Donald Ross Road from that same ocean to Lake Okeechobee. That's the entire Port District. Port authorities, as I indicated, were created and creatures of the legislature, and they were designed and put in place to be economic engines. I am running because I believe that our port should be in a position to maximize its economic development potential so that the entire port region benefits. We're running because we want to see a couple of things happen. I want to see an inland port facility in the western parts of our communities, and there's no reason why that hasn't happened. For me, there's no other motivation other than the economic one for growth and development in this area and throughout the port. So that inland port is important to me in getting it done. So my efforts from day one are going to be to do whatever I can as a commissioner to revitalize that discussion and get it back on track. I've talked to members in the Western communities, and they are excited about that potential, and they're excited about hearing a port commissioner entertaining what they believe they need in their communities to make an economic difference. And that's why I'm running. The second thing I'd like to do is build and transform the waterfront near and around the port. And just think, what if we had a world-class aquarium somewhere near and around that port facility? Not simply because I like aquariums. I do happen to like aquariums, but I've seen what port authorities have been able to do with aquariums and partnering with communities in order to get that done. And our aquarium would tell such a great story, capturing the story of the Gulf Stream. And I don't know whether or not many of your members knew, but right at the basin of the Blue Heron Bridge, divers come from around the world to scuba and dive right there, because our inlet, although man-made, is a great salt chuck that brings in salt water, and it blends just enough with fresh water to create these beautiful diving opportunities in and around the Blue Heron Bridge, and then it goes back out to the sea. So what a wonderful story it would tell. So those are my passions. I'm not running on any other premise. There's nothing else that I'd like to see done more. And some might ask, well, how do you do that? Well, look, you create the same public-private partnerships that built the stadiums out there for those two ball teams that we see. That was a combined private sector governmental effort, and look what they have out there now, two beautiful ball teams. So we can use that same imagination to jumpstart the economies on the West and on the East, transforming that waterfront. I'd love to see an aquarium there, and building that inland port out in the western parts of the communities that's going to create jobs and job opportunities for our community, the entire port district. The port district will tell you that it's generated $200+ million in revenue. I'm saying let's take that revenue that is generated and use it to economically develop and create jobs and small business opportunities throughout the entire port district. That's why I'm running.
Well, as a grandmother, that aquarium idea sounds amazing. I think I would love to take my grandkids there.
Well, you know, my sons, when I mentioned this to my sons who still live in Ohio, he said, Pops, you guys don't have an aquarium? Because right there on the Ohio River, he has one.
Okay, so that sounds great. Now, you talked a little bit about the inland port. Other than jobs, how would that benefit the port? I mean, I know it would benefit the Western communities, but how exactly would that benefit the Port of Palm Beach by having an inland port?
Well, it's going to create another port-like facility that can take some of the load off of the arteries that we currently have that now cause us to ship everything over to our eastern seaboard in order for the port to handle it, to touch it. Not to mention, you know, the small business opportunities that are going to be created with an inland port. You could have some assembly and light manufacturing done, you know, right there at the inland port. But more importantly, you know, the port, its economic muscle extends the entire breadth of its district. So it's going to have a economic and life connection because it's going to be part of it. It's going to be part of what our entire operations. It's to me, it's a no-brainer, and it makes good sense, and everybody wins in that situation.
Okay, thank you. What is your view of doing a deep dredge beyond the 33 feet current depth?
For me, I don't know that the economic case has been made for for a deep dredge. As a incoming commissioner, I would have to do my homework. Part of the consideration would have to be what's the economic benefit for the port if we do it? You know, how is the environment going to be impacted? You know, how are the aesthetics of the waterfront going to be impacted if we do, you know, the dredging? So all of those considerations are things that I, as a policymaker, would have to weigh to make a decision. Now, I understand that there is monies now available, you know, for dredging, and that there are some permitting issues and things like that that are being discussed. But for me, as a new coming commissioner, you know, I would have to do my homework before I made a policy decision around that. And one may already have been made, and that die may have already been cast. But once there, I'm going to insist that all of the environmental considerations are noted, and that we make certain that there is no adverse impact to port facilities, port operations, surrounding communities, and that it's going to make economically good sense, you know, to do that. So the only reason I could see that we would do that is to bring in larger ships. Now, I'm familiar with that inlet, and I'm familiar with the space in and around Peanut Island, and the shallowness of it. There's not a lot of maneuverability there. And if we bring in something larger, where is it going to park or dock, if you will? So all of those considerations and things that I would have to become fully abreast of before I would be comfortable with saying, you know, yes, let's dredge. So right now, I don't know that is a policy consideration that is well founded.
Thank you. Do you believe that there is enough diversity at the port and among port staff?
I believe that workforces should reflect the community that they serve. When I was a police chief, I made certain that the police department in Riviera Beach looked like the community that it served. That would be my goal as a policymaker, to encourage the administrative persons to take that into consideration when they're making hiring decisions. It should reflect the community that it serves. Now, in most of the operations that I've been familiar with, and most of the operations that I've seen, absent the one I just told you about, where we were as diverse a law enforcement agency as you will find in Palm Beach County, I would imagine that there is work to do if the port is reflective of other governmental entities that I've seen throughout our county.
Okay, and it's a very timely issue right now in our country.
Yes.
What do you think is the most important thing? And you've touched on this in your answers to other things, but I'm just going to give you a chance to let us know what you think the most important thing the port can do in the short term and also in the long term.
Those are good questions. And in the short term, for me, I just go back to why I'm running, and it's for economic growth and development. And I believe in the short term, from a purely operational standpoint, that we should include an economic development component in our operations. And as a policymaker, that's what I would be subscribing and encouraging those who manage and run the day-to-day to consider. Because again, ports were created to be economic engines and developers. When I look at other port authorities throughout this country and the things that they've done to assist the communities in and around them to grow and develop, you know, there is a segment, a substantial segment of the port district that is in the opportunity zones. And opportunity zones present excellent opportunities for private-public partnerships to flourish. And we should be encouraging those, using that $250+ million muscle to do some economic development throughout the community, starting with that inland port and starting with transforming that waterfront to do some things that I think need to be done. So in the long term, you know, continuing to reach out to the entire community, including them in as many opportunities to flourish as we possibly can. So those are the things that I see. So the opportunity to create the economic development component, I think that's paramount. That's why I'm running. In the long term, we just continue to build on the relationships that we have. Recovering from this pandemic, the impacts of it on the cruise industry and other port operations. So working to do those kinds of things and making a difference there.
So you segued into my last question. How has the port been impacted by the pandemic, other than we're meeting on Zoom? What has how has the port suffered during this pandemic?
Well, I know that the cruise industry has suffered. I know that you know, exports have suffered because many countries are simply shut down and aren't receiving goods and services from around the world. But the impact of the cruise industry and what it has experienced as a result of this is probably a large hit on port revenues. And it's going to take a while for us to recover from that.
Agree. So I'm going to give you a chance. You're in a primary August 18th, and I know we want to get everybody out to vote. What would you like to leave us with before we go?
Well, thank you again for the opportunity. And I would like to say that we are committed to having the port be the economic engine that it was created and designed to be, having it use its $200 million plus economic muscle to help create economic growth and development throughout the entire port district. And we can do that. We can do that by creating the private-public partnerships that are necessary in order to make it happen. We can do that by being singularly focused on not only the footprint where we are located, where our tenants do very well, but expanding that so that there are benefits for all the communities that are served within the port district. So that's my passion. That's why I'm running, and I would encourage and look for all of the support that I can possibly get in that effort. It is challenging in these times, and especially for a non-incumbent to try to break through. But our message is simple, and that's the one that has been placed on me to deliver. And we're excited about the opportunity, and we're excited to elevate the conversation. And for us, prosperity begins at the water's edge.
Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you today. We have Clarence Williams, candidate for Port of Palm Beach, Group 3. Thanks so much. Good night.
Good night. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.